we received a question which is about how to not feel deflated when you're being corrected by your partner on pronunciation. I think this example was particularly. So the feeling that when you're learning your partner's language and you're trying your best and you say something and then they correct you because they feel you're pronouncing it wrong, and maybe you are pronouncing it wrong.
You probably are.
You probably are, but then the feeling of just crap. How to not feel crap about that. We were talking a little bit about this earlier, and I think there's two elements to it. Do you want to give your example of, because you had somebody that was in this situation?
Well, I could take another example actually that I didn't mention to you, that just remembered now. Mm-hmm. So I was watching this tutorial video on a strategy game a few weeks ago, and the guy was from England, and he pronounced a few French names correctly in his tutorial video. And people didn't say that his video was great, because it was great. You learn a lot about how to play the game. But what people were most impressed about was how he pronounced the French names. So they didn't thank him for the video. They didn't thank him that, this is really nice because now I know how to play this game. But now they know that he knows how to pronounce certain towns in French.
Right.
So there is an obsession almost with
pronunciation.
If you don't pronounce something correctly, perfectly, then you don't speak the language.
Yeah.
And
that is really harsh, because I mean, when you're learning in the beginning, you're gonna make mistakes. You're learning. You're practicing, and with the Swedish pronunciation, there's definitely a couple of sounds, and we'll come back to one of them later on in this live session. That you need to use muscles that probably not exist, or they're dormant, or you're not using them in your language, your native language. So, but I think it's fair to say that there's an added complication when it is your partner, just because of the relationship that you have with them, and you want to look good in front of them, and you want to show that you are putting in the effort to learning their language. It's almost like a love, what am I trying to say, like
a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, but it's also an expression of love, that you are so committed in the relationship that you want to learn their language, perhaps, and then to then be corrected can feel difficult. Can feel difficult. And I think it could be more so if it is your partner.
Yeah.
Because you obviously have a relationship with them,
and they know how to say or do something, but they usually don't know why.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
I mean, this is something that I often hear from my students. It's like, well, and I get a new student, and they say, oh yes, I have a Swedish partner. Okay, have you been practicing with them, or are you learning with them? And they just said, no, it's impossible. Sometimes some people are really helpful, but just because you speak a language, just because your partner speaks Swedish, doesn't mean that they know why we say things in a certain way, or how to practice those muscles, or why this preposition comes with that verb, or whatever it might be. They don't know the rules for plural, how to make nouns into plurals. So just because you have a partner that speaks the language doesn't mean that they are necessarily a good teacher, or that they know why or how we say things. So then that can lead to a lot of frustration. But I also think there's another aspect to this. So you feel really vulnerable, and you're going to feel vulnerable when you're learning a new language, and especially then in front of your partner that you ideally want to probably impress, and but you have to try and get over that. You have to try and feel that it's okay to make mistakes. I mean, this is not, it depends on what kind of relationship you have with your partner, I suppose, if they are understanding and so on, because it's not helpful if they kind of just say, hey, that's wrong, you didn't do that properly, then that's not so helpful. But there's also part, I think, within the person who's learning the language, you have to just kind of go, okay, I said it incorrectly, I'm going to try and do it better or work out how to say this. And it's not a big deal. Like, it doesn't mean that you've failed. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't mean that you can never learn it. And you have to stop putting a link between almost like your self-worth and your ability to speak the language at this level, wherever you are.
I can just see my mom, for example. She doesn't speak perfect Swedish. She's been in Sweden since mid-70s or something.
And she's Polish.
She's Polish, yeah. And I mean, she speaks Swedish, obviously, and she's learned how to speak. She speaks perfectly Swedish, but it's just that she has sometimes N and et, for example. And that's something that will always haunt anyone who's learned Swedish, I think.
Yeah.
There will always be a word that you say wrong on it. Yeah. And she does that quite frequently. And I used to correct her when I was an angsty teenager, because I thought, yeah, she needs to know how to speak this properly. But it's not a big deal. I mean, she's got friends regardless, and she's doing well in Sweden regardless, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And having a partner that wants to correct you all the time is more about them than about you.
Yeah.
Because I have a friend who does that, and I've told them off several times, because I don't think it's definitely not helpful for anyone to do that, because the frustrated person gets more frustrated, because no matter how much they say to correct them, they still don't get it right, and the person who's being corrected gets frustrated because they do it wrong, and they think it's, if my partner doesn't acknowledge me or whatever, then it causes problems. So I think correcting like that is not good, not healthy at all.
Yeah. I wonder as well if you can maybe take the reins, as in you can say, please, am I pronouncing this right? Can you correct me? You can ask for that feedback.
Yeah.
Because then it's more like you're expecting it, you want to learn. It's like, let me try and say sjuksköterska.
But it has to be one thing at a time. I mean, one day they'll correct you on the pronunciation, and the other day will be N and et, and the third day will be verbs. And
then you just feel like
you can't be corrected on everything.
No.
It's just not going to be helpful.
Yeah.
So I probably speak, my Polish is probably very bad, but people understand what I'm saying, and I'm fine. I don't really care if people say I pronounce something wrong. But I don't speak Polish now anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think also, like, you can't, I mean, when you're learning a language, especially as an adult, you're always going to have an accent.
Yeah.
I actually think it's almost impossible to speak without any accent if you've started learning the language as an adult. I think
it's up until 15.
It's 15, something like that. Then if you move to the country before that, then you can completely get rid of your accent, like Cornelis Vreeswijk did, the Swedish musicians. And he was from Holland, wasn't he? And he came when he was like 11 or 12 or something, and he was just perfect. But I think you're always going to have an accent, so don't let that stop you.
No.
We speak English with a Swedish accent to some extent, so that's fine, because you've got to remember that the language is about, you don't set the bar so high that you're like, well, if I'm going to speak Swedish, then it has to be like I will be mistaken for a native Swede. That's really a tough standard. I think it's impossible, actually.
I think also that people speak very different Swedish in different places of Sweden.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we have many dialects.
So the best dialect where I come from
It's not the best.
doesn't
second
sound
best.
doesn't sound the same as the second best dialect in Sweden. So and if you're trying to sound like someone from the southern Sweden, Skåne, for example,
sure.
I really feel sorry for those who moved there trying to learn Swedish by moving to southern Sweden.
Yeah, it's a strong.
Yeah,
it's a strong dialect.
Absolutely.
So yeah, don't set the bar so high. Accept that you will always have a bit of an accent, and that's fine. Ask for feedback when you want it from your partner. I think that's fine. And then, just be patient. Oh, thank you. Here's some sweets. Not for the
She
dog.
needs it.
Not for the, I need it. And then, just be patient. And especially if you're like on level A1 or A2, it's definitely not going to be perfect. You're going to say things wrong, but who cares?
I will care during lesson.
Well, yes, of course. And so will I. And I will pick up anything, as long as... the most important thing is that you're being understood.
Communication. It's about communication.
Yeah,